character building start. So I'm Bea, one of the regional directors at Dartrace, based out of our Manchester office. Dan, you're going to have to click for me. Sorry, I'll just look over. So today I'm going to talk about Dartrace and our core technology, which is the enterprise immune system. Thank you. So Dartrace was founded by mathematicians and machine learning specialists who've brought a fundamentally new approach to cybersecurity. We're now widely recognized as the world's #1 AI in cybersecurity. You can see quite a few awards here that we're very, very proud of. Our headquarters are in Cambridge and San Francisco, and we've seen an unprecedented growth in the last 6 years, and we now protect thousands of organizations, as you can see here. So among them, we work with industries of all different sectors, different verticals, different size of business, and you'll no doubt see institutions on this slide that are maybe neighbors, competitors, or like businesses of yours. So why are we here? Why am I here talking to you about Dartrace? So when we deploy in a network, you've obviously already got technologies that are there to defend, protect, and essentially look at what you're defining as bad to keep out of your network. Next generation firewalls, endpoint security to SIEM solutions. But as soon as Dartrace deploys, our AI immediately finds things, and we're talking about within the first week of deployment, we will find things ongoing in the network that are very interesting, threats or vulnerabilities within the organization. So the key thing that we see is that the legacy approach isn't sufficient. The threat landscape is becoming more and more complex every day. Attackers are becoming more advanced, and things are moving much, much quicker in networks. We're seeing attacks move at machine pace, which creates a huge challenge for human teams. That's not to say that, obviously, as the lady said, it is a horrible thing to say, it's the humans that are the weakness, but a human can't possibly act or react as quickly as a machine is moving laterally through a network. So ransomware is a great example of this. And that really is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're seeing in networks. We also face silent, stealthy attacks that will blend in to the noise of the background. So if you've got a technology that's constantly firing, a stealthy attack will just slip and go into the background there. So they can move data, collate data over a long period of time without being noisy. So what we're effectively seeing is a cyberarms race, which human teams just can't keep up with without a bit of help. This set against a backdrop of increasing business complexity, people outsourcing things, using software as a service, having the fish tank connecting to the network. New devices constantly connecting in means that the security team can really struggle to actually know what their own infrastructure looks like, let alone protect it. The approach at Dartrace is fundamentally different. We call it the enterprise immune system, and we're learning self within real time. So rather than going in with a baseline of what we're going to define as bad activity, within a network, we learn what your network looks like. By learning the network, we can then spot anomalous activity in real time. So we're detecting and responding to potentially threatening behavior in all types of networks with 100% visibility. As what you hopefully saw from the previous slide, we are completely scalable. So we work with companies from around 9 people up to businesses with over 1 million endpoints. So it's very, very scalable. And we sit in all different parts of the infrastructure. Internet of Things is obviously huge at the moment with so many different devices connecting into the network, which obviously makes day-to-day much easier. But for the IT team, the security team, it makes life that little bit harder. So by understanding self within this network, we're able to take really intelligent action. So targeted action on a series of different things. So these are a few examples of what we've seen within networks, especially in like ICS, SCADA, compromises, things like that. So being able to see that all under one roof is spectacular for us. So from advanced malware, ransomware to insider threat, vulnerabilities that are ongoing within the network, Dartrace can spot them. This is just an example of like how we've grown, which we're obviously very proud of. I'm going to jump onto the demo now. I can't from memory remember if there's any slides. I'm not going to lie, but it'd be great just to give you a bit of a view of the interface. If my helper can click onto them. While we're waiting for Dan to do that, has anybody got any immediate questions?
Cloud integration. How do you find the cloud suppliers allowing you to put Darktrace with your environments?
Initially, it was obviously a conversation where they were like, what is this? But they've been involved in a lot of proof of values that we run, which is a month free trial. So a lot of them, know who we are now. We've run thousands and thousands of deployments through them, so they are aware of us. Initially, obviously getting access to the DC was probably the most difficult part, but it's much easier now. Yeah. Usually we'd have the company on a what we call a network sizing call. So when we're understanding what the network looks like, you'll have your third-party supplier on that call, so they understand that you're okay with it and what we require. So it's pretty straightforward. No problem. Any other questions before I jump onto that? Nope. So this is the output. Apologies, it's a very dark background, so it obviously doesn't stand up very well. This is what the output of Darktrace looks like. So it's a global deployment here, and I'm just going to give you a quick drive around. I just want to show you what it looks like. If we can just pull up a domain controller. So we've got an Elasticsearch at the top, so you can search the entirety of the data that Darktrace has seen, any device. We can tell you when it was first seen, when it was last seen, what it's doing on the network. If you've got a contractor that was recently on, you can make sure that they've dropped off the network. Really good housekeeping things. The timeline function, we're in real time, so you can essentially use it as almost like a CCTV within your network. And you can actually visually look at what devices look like. So domain controller is always a great example because it's super busy in a network. You've got the desktops on the left-hand side, servers on the right-hand side, and you can watch what's happening. So if, for example, one of the desktops on the left was connecting out to a rare destination, and you could visually see on the globe it was going out to a destination that you're not comfortable with, you have no presence there, why is it there? You can immediately look into that and provide context through Darktrace. I don't want to waste too much time on this because I'd really like to have a conversation one-on-one if people want to have a look at the technology. But if there is any questions, I'd like to run through them now because I appreciate we've gone over time with the... Any questions? Hi.
Yeah, we've had this one before, but when you put your stuff on an organisation systems, you're baselining their activity then. When you put your technology onto a company's systems, you're baselining the activity then. If at that stage they've already been compromised, wouldn't you miss that because it looks like normal behaviour even though it's actually abnormal behaviour?
Yeah, great question. So when Darktrace learns very, very quickly. So when we enter a network, we would see, this is what this device is doing. If it's beaconing into the Balearics, that's what we'd see as that device's activity. However, very quickly, part of the mathematics is called k-means clustering. And essentially what that means is it'll bring together devices that function in a similar way or users that function in a similar way. So if a laptop's got residual malware on it and it's doing something peculiar, it would stand out from every other laptop or its peer groups, for example. So that actually is one of the first phases of the learning because it stands out super quickly. And it's how we spot ongoing, like dry detector attacks, things like that, because they are very noisy in a network. Even if it's just a subtle deviation, people accessing a file that nobody else is accessing, like a file server, it might be part of the legacy equipment within a business, and they didn't know anybody was connecting to it, and that will stand out super quickly to Darktrace. Yeah, I mean, you can do that. It's obviously not what we're aiming to do at Darktrace, but it's very, very simple to do it. Like, for example, some of our users have actually looked into building their own alerts within Darktrace. So when somebody's looking at, like a job site, for example, essentially so you can spot issues way before they've happened, because if someone's looking at a job site, they're obviously unhappy in their current position. Maybe they'll then start, collating data to take with them when they leave. So you can spot things much, much earlier on, but you absolutely can do that. And it also gives you the proactivity to lock down sites that you're connecting to. you may have like Tor projects locked down, for example, but everybody in the business might be using Dropbox and you weren't aware of it because you didn't have that visibility. So yeah, we can.
Thanks. You obviously get your telemetry from the network. Are there any plans in flight to collect directly from endpoints with a sort of agent-based extension?
No, I mean, our R&D team's extensive and it's constantly working. So the answer is I don't know at the minute because we're seeing so much from the network layer. And obviously, endpoint it's a much more difficult deployment because as soon as somebody new joins, you've got to enable it on another endpoint. So this type of deployment is why we can do it in like an hour because it's super simple. It's from the main traverse point in a network, and then we'll have probes elsewhere where required. But I don't know, to be honest. Any other questions? No? Good. Well, apologies for the far from professional start to this. But if there's anything that you didn't want to ask in front of everyone, please come over to our stand. We're located by the entrance. And thank you for your time.